네, 안녕하세요 여러분. 반갑습니다. 오늘은 벌써 My Name is Red을 읽은 지 3주차가 되었는데요. 잠시만요. 머리가 너무 이상해. 네, 3주차가 되었고 이제 이번 주 마지막 시간이기도 하죠. 어제는 살인자가 셰크의 아버지 있는 시댁에 가서 내가 엘리거 팬들을 죽였습니다 라고 말을 하기 시작하는데요. 그 다음에 이제 과연 어떻게 일이 일어날지 챕터 29을 보도록 하겠습니다. 우선 이니시티의 입장에서는 살아야 되겠죠. 그 살기 위해서 자신이 가장 잘하는 걸 합니다. 바로 말을 하기 시작해요. 말을 하기 시작하면서 처음에는 이제 그 전에 했던 비슷한 방식대로 가요. 그림에 대해서 그리는 걸 두려워할 필요가 없다. 너는 그걸 위해서 살인을 한 거다. 하지만 두려워할 필요가 없다. 이런 식으로 얘기를 하게 되는데요. 그 부분부터 제가 한번 읽어드리도록 하겠습니다. 이제 살인자가 질문합니다. You don't fault me for murdering that idiotic miniaturist, do you then? What attracts us to writing, illustrating, and painting is bound up in this fear of retribution. It's not only for money and favor that we kneel before our work from morning to evening, continuing by candlelight through the night to the point of blindness and sacrifice ourselves for pictures and books. It's to escape the prattle of others, to escape the community. But in contrast to this passion to create, we also want those we've forsaken to see and appreciate the inspired pictures we've made. And if they should call us sinners, the suffering of this brings upon the illustrator of genuine talent. Yet, genuine painting is hidden in the agony no one sees and no one creates. It's contained in the picture which on first sight it'll say is bad, incomplete, blasphemous, or heretical. A genuine miniaturist knows he must reach that point, yet at the same time he fears the loneliness that awaits him there. Who would accede to such a frightful, nerve-wracking existence by blaming himself before anyone else does? The artist believes he'll be spared what he feared for years. Others listen to him and believe him only when he admits his guilt, for which is then condemned to burn in hell. The illustrator of Ifasan lit these hellfires himself. 네, 이제 그러한 두려움 그리고 반대 이런 것들이 결국에는 화가로서 버텨야 될 거다. 좀 이렇게 얘기를 하는데요. 잠시만 오늘 카메라가 자꾸 말 안 들어서 좀 더 네. 근데 이걸로는 사실 설득이 안 되죠. 이제 살인자가 다음과 같이 말합니다. I acknowledge very well what I feel. I'm suffering the torments of the grave without having died. Unawares, we've sunk to our necks in sin because of you, and now you're preaching more courage. You're the one who's made me a murderer. Nusra Hoja's rabid henchmen will kill us all. 네. 처음에는 이제 그 그림을 그리는 거에 대해서 뭔가 확신이 있는 듯이 행동했는데 막상 두려움에 닥치니까 자신이 살인한 것도 에너시대 때문이고 내가 지금 죄를 지은 것도 너 때문이다. 이렇게 남의 탓을 하기 시작합니다. 이제 설득이 되지 않으니 좀 방식을 바꿔요. 바로 이 사람의 그림 실력을 언급하며 칭찬을 하기 시작하는데요. 이 구문이 굉장히 읽다 보면 뭔가 소름 끼치는 그리고 굉장히 인상 깊은 독백이라기보단 대화로서 한번 읽어드리도록 하겠습니다. You are the most talented, divinely inspired artist with the most enchanted touch and eye for detail that I've seen in all my 60 years. If you put a painting before me which had been the combined work of 1,000 miniaturists, I'd be still able to recognize instantly the magnificence of your pen. Agreed. But I know you're not wise enough to appreciate the mystery of my skill, he said. You're lying now because you're afraid of me. Describe once again the character of my methods. Your pen selects the right lines seemingly of its own accord, as if without your touch. What your pen draws is neither truthful or frivolous. When you portray a crowded gathering, the tension emerging from the glances between figures, their positioning on the page, and the meaning of the text metamorphosed into an elegant internal whisper. I returned to your paintings again and again to hear the whisper, and each time I realized with a smile that the meaning has changed, and how shall I put it? I begin to read the painting anew. When these layers of meaning are taken together, a depth emerges that surpasses even the perspectivism of the European masters. Fine, well, forget about the European masters. Start from the beginning. You have such a truly magnificent and forceful line that the observer believes in what you've painted rather than in reality itself. And just as your talent could create a picture that would force the most devout man to renounce his faith, it could also bring the most hopeless, unrepentant unbeliever to Allah's path. True, but I'm not sure that amounts to praise. Try again. There's no miniaturist who knows the consistency of paint and its secrets as well as you do. You always prepare and apply the glossiest, most vibrant, most genuine colors. Yes, and what else? You know you're the greatest of painters after Brizad and Mercy and Ali. Yes, I'm aware of this. If you're two, why are you making the book with that model of mediocrity, Black Effendi? First, the work he doesn't require a miniaturist skill, I said. Second, unlike yourself, he's not a murderer. 여기를 보면 우선 한 번 더 NH의 말씀씨에 감탄하게 되고, 두 번째로 계속 그렇게 계속 어디 한번 해봐 이런 느낌의 살인자를 보면서 얘는 좀 사이코패스구나 라는 생각도 굉장히 들었습니다. 맨 마지막에 이렇게 얘기를 하죠. 그자는 너와는 달리 살인자가 아니다. 이제 이러면서 이 사람이 이걸 농담처럼 얘기해서 분위기가 풀려 하는데요. 그 후로 서로 또 그림에 대해서 갑자기 토론을 하기 시작합니다. 거기에서 이제 중요한 점이 사람들은 보이는 대로 그린 그림을 좋아하고 관점에 따라 그린 그림을 좋아하지 않는다. 이런 얘기가 또 나오게 되는데요. 결국 이 얘기를 하면서 에니시테의 요점은 그림은 영원하지 않고 언젠가는 사라질 거다 라는 말을 하는 건데요. 여기를 그 부분은 이제 좀 더 나중에 얘기하는 거 죄송합니다. 자, 아직까지는 이제 사람들이 보이는 대로 그린 그림을 좋아하고 화가의 관점에 따라서 바꿔진 그림은 좋아하지 않는다. 그래서 이게 싫어서 서양화를 선택했다. 이런 식으로 설명을 하기 시작해요. 여기를 독백을 일부 읽어드리겠습니다. They predict what the eye sees just as the eye sees it. Indeed, they paint what they see, whereas we paint what we look at. Beholding their work, one comes to realize that the only way to have one's face immortalized is through the Frankish style. And it's not only the inhabitants of Venice who are captured by this notion, but all the tailors, butchers, soldiers, priests, and grocers in all the Frankish lands. They all have their portraits made this way. Just a glance at those paintings and you too would want to see yourself this way. You'd want to believe that you're different from all others, a unique, special, and particular human being, painting people not as they are perceived by the mind, but as they're actually seen by the naked eye. Painting in the new method allows for this possibility. One day everyone will paint as they do. When painting is mentioned, the world will think of their work. 네. 근데 재밌는 점은 서양화는 관점보다는 보이는 대로 그리는 것이 큰 이점인 아트 스타일이잖아요. 이 점을 생각하면 에네시테가 보이는 대로 그린 그림을 싫어한다고 얘기를 하고 관점에 따라 그린 그림에 대해서 높게 평가하면서도 서양화를 선택하는 면을 보면 이 사람이 정확하게 대중을 따라가려는 건지 아니면 새로운 길을 개척하려는 건지 이것도 좀 질문이 생기는 것 같아요. 네. 제가 여기를 정확하게 이해를 했는지는 잘 모르겠지만 제 개인적인 해석은 나름 그렇게 방향이 잡혔습니다. 그 다음에 그들이 그린 그림을 사람들이 좋아할 일은 절대 없을 거다. 물론 이게 의미 있는 일이지만 여전히 멸시당하고 천하게 여겨질 것이다. 이렇게 얘기를 갑자기 바꿔서요. 앞에서 계속 칭찬만 하다가 그러면서 결국 그림이 영원할 것이라고 생각할 수 없다 하면서 아름다운 그림들을 막 묘사해요. 묘사하다가 결국 이 결론은 이런 것들도 다 없어질 거다. 갑자기 뭔가 부질없다. 좀 이런 느낌의 얘기를 갑자기 하게 되는데요. 그 일부분을 발췌해서 읽어드리겠습니다. Not only our own art, but every single work made in this world over the years will vanish in fires, be destroyed by worms, or be lost out of neglect. Sharon proudly watching Husra from a window, Husra delightfully spying on Sharon as she bathes by moonlight. Lovers gazing at each other with grace and subtlety. Rustum's wrestling a white demon to death at the bottom of a well. The anguished state of a love-lorn Majan befriending a white tiger and a mountain goat in the desert. The capture and hanging of a deceitful shepherd dog who presents a sheep from his flock to the she-wolf he mates with each night. 네, 그러면서 이제 계속 뭐라고 해야 될까요? 아름다운 그림들 묘사하면 이것들 다 사라질 거야? 응, 사라질 거야? 살짝 좀 이런 느낌으로 얘기를 해요. 살인자의 속을 계속 긁는 거죠. 그래서 과연 어떻게 될까요? 읽어드리겠습니다. Raising the impot, he struck me on the head with all his strength. I tottered forward under the force of the blow. I felt a horrible pain that I could never even hope to describe. The entire world was wrapped in my pain and faded to yellow. A large portion of my mind assumed that this attack was intentional. Yet, along with the blow, or perhaps because of it, another faltering part of my mind, in a sash of goodwill, wanted to say to the madman who inspired to be my murderer, "Have mercy, you've attacked me in error." He raised the impot again and brought it down upon my head. This time, even the faltering part of my mind understood that this was no mistake, but madness and wrath that might very well end in my death. I was so terrified by this state of affairs that I began to raise my voice, howling with all my strength and suffering. The color of this howl would be vertigrous, and in the blackness of evening on the empty streets, no one would be able to hear its hue. I knew I was all alone. He was startled by my wail and hesitated. We momentarily came to eye. I could tell from his pupils that despite his horror and embarrassment, he resigned himself to what he was doing. He was no longer the master militarist I knew, but an unfamiliar and ill-willed stranger who didn't speak my language, and this sensation protracted my momentary isolation for centuries. I wanted to hold his hand as if to embrace this world. It was of no use. I begged, or thought I did. My child, my dear child, please do not end my life. As if in a dream, he seemed not to hear. He lowered the impot onto my head again. My thoughts, what I saw, my memories, my eyes, all of it, merging together, became fear. I could see no one color and realized that all colors had become red. What I thought was my blood was red ink. What I thought was ink on his hands was my flowing blood. 결국 죽게 됩니다. 네, 사실 지난 챕터부터 어느 정도 그거는 암시가 되고 있었는데요. 결국 죽게 되고 그 죽음의 과정을 굉장하게 오르한 파묵 작가는 길게 설명을 하면서 마치 한 화가의 걸작을 보는 것 같은 느낌을 들게 만듭니다. 여기를 일부분을 발췌해서 읽어드리겠습니다. When I knew death was unavoidable, I wept. My tears made me profoundly thirsty. On the one hand, there was the stupefying agony of my face and eyes drenched in blood. On the other hand, there was the place where frenzy and cruelty ceased. Yet that place was strange and terrifying. I knew it to be that illumined realm, the land of the dead, to which Azrael beckoned me, and I was frightened. Even so, I knew I couldn't long remain in this world that caused me to writhe and howl in agony. In this land of frightful pain and torment, there was no place for me to take solace. To say I'd have to resign myself to this unbearable torment, and this was impossible in my elderly condition. Just before I died, I actually longed for my death, and at the same time, I understood the answer to the question that I spent my entire life pondering, the answer I couldn't find in books. How was it that everybody, without exception, succeeded in dying? It was precisely through this simple desire to pass on. I also understood that death would make me a wiser man. Nevertheless, I was overcome with the indecision of a man about to take a long journey and unable to refrain from taking one glance at his room, at his belongings, and his home. In a panic, I wished to see my daughter one last time. I wanted this so badly, I was prepared to grit my teeth for a while longer and endure the pain and my increasing thirst to wait for Shekara's return. 네, 죽기 전에 마지막으로 다이얼로그를 한 번이라도 보기를 바랍니다. 하지만 안 실패하죠, 결국. 왜냐하면 셰크레는 그 와중에 이제 블랙과 미래를 하고 있었으니까. 이렇게 결국 우리의 애니시티어 팬디는 죽음을 맞이합니다. 그 다음에 다음 챕터는 아마 예상하셨겠지만 셰크레의 관점에서 시작이 됩니다. 이제 셰크레는 미래를 잘 마치고 블랙이 참 순진한 사람이다 라고 생각하면서 뭔가 애틋한 마음으로 집에 돌아오는데요. 돌아왔는데 뭔가 조금씩 이상한 거예요. 그래서 결국 올라가서 아버지 방에 들어가서 이제 사건 현장을 보게 됩니다. 이때 이 반응을 한번 읽어드리겠습니다. Without thinking, I was about to say, "What has my father done?" Then I saw him on the floor. I screamed, overcome with horror. Then I screamed again. Gazing at my father's body, I fell silent. Listen, I can tell by your tight-lipped and cold-blooded reaction that you've known for some time what's happened in this room. If not everything, then quite a lot. What you're wondering about now is my reaction to what I've seen, what I feel. As readers sometimes do when studying a picture, you're trying to discern the pain of the hero and thinking about the events in the story leading up to this agonizing moment. And then, having considered my reaction, you'll take pleasure in trying to imagine not my pain, but what you'd feel in my place had it been your father murdered like this. I know this is what you're so craftily trying to do. Yes, I returned home in the evening to discover that someone had killed my father. Yes, I tore out my hair. Yes, as I would do in my childhood, I hugged him with all my might and smelled his skin. Yes, I trembled and I couldn't breathe. Yes, I begged Allah to raise him up and have him sit silently in his corner among his books as he always did. Get up, father, get up, don't die. His bloodied head was crushed. More than the torn papers and books, more than the breaking and tossing about of the end tables, paint sets, and impocks, more than the wild destruction of cushions, work tables, and writing boards, and the ransacking of everything, more even than the anger that had killed my father, I feared the hatred that had destroyed the room and everything within it. I was no longer crying. A couple passed down the street outside, laughing and talking in the blackness. Meanwhile, I could hear the infinite silence of the world in my mind. With my hands, I wiped my running nose and the tears off my cheeks. For a long, long time, I thought about the children and our lives. 네. 오란 파묵 작가는 이 나레이터들이 독자를 의식하게 만들어요. 사실 이 방법은 그렇게까지 작가들이 많이 쓰지를 않는데요. 이 덕분에 뭔가 냉소적인 면도 있고 우리가 이 책을 굉장히 차갑게 바라볼 수 있는 면도 있는 것 같습니다. 하지만 반면에 우리가 이 책을 읽게 되면 아무래도 주인공들을 좀 비우게 되는 것 같아요. 왜냐하면 이들이 굉장히 모순적인 인물들이고 그리고 말과 행동이 다를 경우가 많거든요. 하지만 결국 그러한 독자들인 우리에게 이러한 부분들은 결국 나도 여기 나와 있는 캐릭터들과 별반 다른 게 없다라는 걸 새삼 상기시켜주게 만드는 것 같아요. 사실 어떻게 보면 아무리 그냥 소설이고 팩션이다 해도 누군가의 아픔을 보면서 그거로부터 즐거움을 얻는 거는 그렇게까지 우리가 어떻게 보면 떳떳할 일은 아니죠. 그래서 그런 것도 새삼 깨닫게 하는 화법인 이제 나레이션 방법 중 하나인 것 같습니다. 네, 그래서 맨 마지막에 나와 있듯이 슬퍼한 후에는 자신과 아이들의 미래가 걱정되기 시작하죠. 왜냐, 아버지가 죽으면 더 이상 아버지가 살 이유가 없어지고, 그렇게 되면 현재 상황에서는 하산이 자기를 다시 실종된 남편의 집으로 데려오는데 굉장히 수월해지는 거죠. 그렇기 때문에 사건 현장을 치우기 시작합니다. 그리고 아이들이 하리에와 다시 돌아왔을 때 할아버지가 뭐 아프다는 핑계를 대면서 못 보게 하죠. 이제 하리에에게는 말을 하게 됩니다. 그 다음에 이제 어떻게 할지 설명을 하기 시작하는데요. 이 발췌 부분을 읽어드리겠습니다. Now listen to me, Harry, I said. As I spoke, I waved a fish knife, which my hand had grabbed seemingly on its own. The upstairs has been ransacked too. The same accursed demon had destroyed all. He's made a shamble of everything. That's where he crushed my father's face and skull. That's where he killed him. I brought him down here so the children wouldn't see, and so I might have a chance to caution you. After you three left, I also went out. Father was home by himself. I was not aware of that, she said insolently. Where were you? I wanted her to take careful note of my silence. Then I said, I was with Black. I met with Black in the house of the hanged Jew. But you won't breathe a word of this to anyone, nor for the time being will you mention that my father has been killed. Who was it that murdered him? Was she truly such an idiot, or was she trying to corner me? If I knew, I wouldn't hide the fact that he was dead, I said. I don't know, do you? How should I know anything, she said. What are we going to do now? You're going to behave as if nothing happened whatsoever, as if nothing whatsoever has happened, I said. I felt the urge to wail, to burst out crying, but I restrained myself. We were both quiet. 네, 이제 하리에게는 입단속을 시키고 나머지 자네를 치우게 됩니다. 같이 치우죠. 그 다음에 이제 개인적으로 장례를 치르게 되는데요. 여기에서 이제 두 부분을 발췌된 이제 부분들을 연속을 읽어드리겠습니다. 첫 번째는 이제 장례식을 치르기도 하고, 그리고 완전 낭장판으로 살인자가 만들어 놓은 걸 치우게 되는데요. 그 부분이고요. 그 다음에 두 번째는 셰크레가 자신의 행동을 독자에게 변명하는 내용입니다. 읽어드리겠습니다. I can tell you from experience, unfortunates who've lost loved ones are comforted by the unchanged presence of objects in the house. They're lulled by the sameness of the curtains, blankets, and daylight, which in turn allows them occasionally forget that Azrael had carried away their beloved or kin. The house that my father looked after with patience and love, whose nooks and doors he had meticulously embellished, had been mercilessly vandalized. Thus we were not only devoid of comfort and pleasant memories, but reminded of the pitilessness of the culprit's damned soul. We were terrified as well. For those of you who would accuse me of lacking feeling, or even of being guilty, let me hasten to tell of two further instances when I broke down crying. 1. When I was tidying the upstairs room so the children wouldn't discover what had happened, and I brought a seashell he used as a paper burnisher to my ear, as I'd done as a child, only to discover that the sound of the sea had diminished. When I saw that the red velvet cushion my father sat upon, up often over the last 20 years, so much so it had become part of his rear end, had been torn apart. 네. 여기에서 보면 결국 셰크레는 아버지의 일은 슬픔을 느끼고 있지만 자신의 상황에서 자기와 그리고 아이들을 보호하기 위해서 아버지의 죽음을 당분간, 이제 셰크레의 말로는 당분간 숨기기로 결정을 합니다. 그렇다면 과연 셰크레는 이제 어떻게 될까요? 그 점을 다음 chapter 31 그리고 32부터 조금씩 알아보기 시작하겠습니다. 네, 이번 한 주도 수고 많으셨고요. 저는 다음 주 월요일에 다시 찾아뵙겠습니다. 좋은 밤 되십시오.